Special thanks to Starforged for sponsoring this video. Hi, I'm Arthur, and it's time for me to finally talk a bit more about the Sisters of Battle.
Yes.
I'm weirdly enough surprised that I haven't even brought them up once on my channel, except for like maybe a YouTube short.
This is from a couple years ago. Should clarify.
Or two. So I'm just gonna dangle a sororitas video over you guys like you're some kind of homeless dog and it's a fine ribeye steak. I promise I'll draw more content on specific factions involving them in the future. I just kind of wanted to cover Sisters of Battle and, you know, see where it goes from there. I got a few other factions that I want to do these kinds of faction compilation videos for because I do have a lot of fun researching them as well as making them. So yeah, we're just gonna cover the Sisters now, and then maybe next time we'll do Custodies or maybe something else. If you guys want to see a specific one, just let me know in the comments. So to get into it, let's talk about the basics, as I haven't covered the Sisters on this channel in the past. They are such a fun faction as they represent the weirder hypocrisies of the Imperium of Mankind in such a way that's just neato. So the short version is they are the chamber militant to the Ordo Hereticus branch of the Inquisition, which basically means that they are the religious attack dogs of the inquisitorial staff in charge of maintaining a clean bill of religious health for the Imperium. How this happened was a long story, and I do want to make an entire video covering this section of time known as the Reign of Blood, but basically there was an almost 100 years stretch of time where a corrupt administratum member basically launched a coup and lied, cheated, and stole his way into becoming more or less the emperor of the Imperium for a bit, destroying every single person that would be in his way of governing the entirety of the Imperium of Mankind. He was corrupt as hell, and a non-chaos corrupted individual as well. He tricked the Sisters of Battle, or as they were referred to then, the Daughters of the Emperor, into becoming his personal bodyguard by the name of the Wives of the Emperor. This led to a bloody civil war, where on the side of Goje Van Dyer, there was the Wives of the Emperor.
I like how all the memes have Doge. It's perfect.
The Imperial Guard, or at least most of them, as well as a bunch of other fanatical religious Templari types, versus a legit, probably blessed by the Emperor priest who was backed by his own fanatical army as well as the Space Marines. The war basically ended when the Custodies, coming out of the throne room to speak with the Wives of the Emperor, guided a set few of these individuals into the throne room to meet the Emperor. It's never fully explained what happened, but whatever happened in there led them to being so pissed off they came out, killed Goje, and stopped the civil war immediately. This led to them being incorporated into the Inquisition because technically the cult of the Emperor and all other religious affiliates were no longer allowed to amass any level of military might. So this is a bit of a loophole since the now renamed Sisters of Battle are technically warriors of the church, but they serve the Inquisition, so I guess it kind of works out. The Sisters of Battle are a military group of individuals selectively chosen and possibly bred to be incredibly pious warrior women who might in fact be psychically inclined, but don't.
I would like to know more specifically about the bread part, because I've not heard that bit before.
Don't actually say that, they will kill you. They are known to be completely filled by ranks of power armor-clad warriors who use bolt guns. They are essentially the female response to the existence of the male-occupied Space Marines, though their lore was radically different in order to provide a response to any inaccuracies that could come from gene seed interactions with female genetic code, as this ends with them just being completely human. But regardless, they are incredibly pious individuals with an obsession with bolt guns, fire-based weapons such as flamers, and melta-weapons, which in general makes them a relatively strong fighting force, but due to the collective unconscious zeal they all feel, they actually all can cause psychic phenomena to appear due to their religious fervor. There is a bit more to it, as there is some interesting things that comes into it, like a lot of the living saints and the saint-like abilities that occurred are probably because of a collective belief in saints and that they feel, especially during times of need, an intense desire. This can cause phenomena to manifest. Like Celestine usually only appears when there is a lot of Sisters of Battle in need and there is a lot of prayers being sent up. So realistically, she's probably a psychically created construct similar to that of, like, I don't want to say a demon, but like a demon. The sisters are divided up into 6 major orders, and there are a bunch of smaller, lesser known orders, but we will only be covering the major orders today. The first thing to note before getting into the orders is there is technically 2 convents: the Convent Prioris, which is the convent of sisters that is located on Terra, and the Convent Sanctorum. There isn't really any major difference between the 2. It's just that both of them house 3 individual sets of the major orders, and they were basically placed on different locations. So the Convent Prioris is on Terra, and the Convent Sanctorum is on Ophelia 7, which was the birthplace of the Daughters of the Emperor. We will cover the Convent Sanctorum first, and then the Convent Prioris second. Not for any other reason other than I just had a reason to kind of order this out, and it made more sense to start this way. You'll understand the second we get into the list. So starting off, we will get the main one out of the way. But before we get into it, I'd like to have a brief word from our sponsor. Starforged is back at it again. Longtime friends to the channel, Starforged are here to let me show you these fine dandies, the 40K chapter baseball caps. Fun fact, most of you would not like to acknowledge, but I shave my head pretty regularly, and in the heat of this summer, I definitely need a hat to not come home with the top of my head looking like Larry the Lobster. And with the Black Templar hat, I can do this not just in style, but also making every Xenos player in the vicinity incredibly uncomfortable, which is what we all want, right?
Good, yes.
Using my link in the description or pinned comment, you can get yourself your own hat for one of your favorite chapters, or even the Inquisition, at a discounted price, as well as support the channel. The hats themselves are already pretty low in cost, so it's pretty much a steal. So use my link to buy them at a discount, and thanks again to Starforged for sponsoring this video. The Order of the Martyred Lady. Originally going by the name the Order of the Fiery Heart, the Order of the Martyred Lady is the most well-known out of all the orders of the Sisters of Battle. You've seen them before. Basically, they're the SOB equivalent of the Ultramarines, where they are likely going to be seen on all the packages of all the miniatures, except for like maybe Morven Val. And it's likely due to them having an easily recognizable paint scheme with black, red, and white, as well as just being in most of the fiction. They are not boring by any stretch. If it sounds like I'm painting them, no, they're not boring. They are just the poster child of the faction. Their story is one of sacrifice, as their original founding canoness superior, which is the leader of any order of sisters, was Saint Catherine. Yes, that one, who led the Order of the Fiery Heart on a massive war front in order to purify the galaxy. A war of faiths was declared, and she would prosecute this bloody war till the end. It ended with her death, of course, and at the hand of a heretic, no less, which it led to the sisters adopting an entirely black armor scheme as a way to mourn. But not in a way of channeling their grief into sadness, more as them channeling their grief into a retributive rage. Only when they felt their vengeance was prosecuted did they add the red and the white elements to their design, which I think really makes their paint scheme mean a lot more in the long run than just, oh hey, it's kind of funny that the Ultramarines are ultramarine blue and they're also the Ultramarines. This is when they also took on the name of the Martyred Lady as a way to be a bit more reverential to Saint Catherine. The Order of the Martyred Lady is not only the most well-known in regards of the miniatures, but they are also the most numerous of all the orders in the setting, being distributed all throughout the universe in such a way that means if you see a Sister of Battle, then you know it's probably them. In terms of mental instability, they are relatively the standard expectation of Sisters of Battle.
I didn't know we were ranking mental stability. This is new.
We're going to find out there is a spectrum of unstable when it comes to the most religious members of the Imperium of Mankind. I refer to this as the scaring the hose scale of mental instability, where at the lowest you have 1, where you have the Ultramarines. They are pragmatic, not really that religious, and they're not too overly emotional, so you could probably have a great conversation with them. And then on the 10 out of 10 side of the scale, you'd have a penitent engine, which is basically just a gibbering, babbling maniac who has chemicals pumped into their brain to literally...
All right, chat. Where am I on the scale? Yes, just yes. 3, 5. 5, but once you start talking about Sangi, up 3 more, so 8. You're right. This is very similar to the hot crazy matrix. Every woman is at least a 4.
See God at all times and then be afraid of him. So with the majority of the Sisters of Battle somewhere ranking between 6 and 7, you kind of have some issues the second you get over 5, because normal ass conversation tends to be a bit difficult, because they tend to just circle back to their hyperfixation, which is usually the Emperor. But the Order of the Martyred Lady is usually a solid 6 most of the time, as their entire shtick as a group is that they're pretty much the most disciplined out of all of them, with some exceptions, of course. But they are one of the more kind groups of the sisters. Their form of combat that they prefer is actually grindy attritional warfare, as their entire combat doctrine is based around them not really caring about their own lives. They believe that to be a martyr is one of the most important aspects of being a member of...
It makes sense. They're the Order of the Martyred Lady. So, you know, they want to be like her.
The Imperium. So as long as you sacrifice yourself for the sake of a noble cause, then you are seen as a perfect member of the Order of the Martyred Lady. I think that's really cool. And I think that they are one of the most popular factions in the Sisters of Battle as possible. I think they are a fun addition, and it's also really interesting that that crowd of individuals who tend to like unstable buff women, you know, that's a trope that exists in 40k.
I don't know who this is, but this is clearly a jab.
To like unstable buff women, you know, that's a trope that exists in 40k quite a lot. I'm not going to name names, but if you know, you know. But they tend to be the ones that people gravitate to the most. They're just the most marketable and the ones that people tend to like. I mean, personally, I think that shit's weak sauce. It's gonna take a lot more than that to honestly impress me. Bark. The Order of the Bloody Rose. Okay, so these might appeal to me on some spiritual level. If you know me, you know I have a certain weakness for violent, crazy, and situationally menacing, also red. So the Order of the Bloody Rose hits me in all the right places, and I have to say they are my favorite of all the orders of the Sisters of Battle. But they are probably the one order you do not want to actually encounter ever. To give you a rundown, let's consult the Scaring the Hose scale of mental instability. And oh fuck. Yeah, they are trained from acceptance into the order to not be silent about anything, but to channel their divine beliefs into an all...
I mean, women aren't generally silent anyways, so they just said, here's a pass for life. No wonder it's a 10.
All-consuming whirlwind of hatred and rage. Hey, did you guys know the Order of the Bloody Rose have their own version of Saint Celestine? Yeah, it's pretty wild they do, but it's more like possession by an unholy demon than anything else. It's this really weird state of mid-battle fervor where during a bloody melee, one of their best fighters can become possessed by some supernatural rage that causes them to get so angry they radiate a heat shimmer, and also that they begin to cry tears of blood while also becoming so powerful that they can go toe-to-toe with a goddamn Chaos Champion if need be.
Shit.
Man, that is wild and probably has nothing to do with Khorne, albeit these sisters are incredibly good at killing the shit out of chaos-corrupted individuals. Dang. So do with this information what you will. You might be asking this question, which I tend to ask in my deepest, darkest nights, my loneliest moments to myself, but why? Well, for one, their order's founder was apparently a violent and crazy psychopath with a long-standing history of being the greatest melee combatant in the history of the Sisters of Battle, which makes sense.
Yeah.
She even has a rumor attached to her where she allegedly fought toe-to-toe with a custodian to a standstill, which is incredibly impressive. Now, I'm not one to make judgment.
No way. No way. No, I don't believe that. I don't believe that.
Calls if lore is confirmed or not, or if it's just a myth that's been propagated
Has to be a myth.
in the Imperium. But Cap, she was supposedly ambushed on a planet during a prayer session and slaughtered the majority of the people who came to kill her before she fell to her wounds. This was sort of a sanguinary cult, as it was described, a group of Khorne berserkers that were obsessed with blood. I like to imagine that what went down was similar to that of like the Punisher prison fight scene. So this legacy of martial superiority and hate has basically
Or if you're aware of Andrew Jackson, one of the US presidents, there was one time a guy tried to end him, and well, as it turns out, that guy was very unlucky. His guns jammed, and then Andrew Jackson proceeded to beat the crap out of him with his cane. I don't think the guy died, but he was beaten within an inch of his life. And honestly, I think that's hilarious. Like, you know, you say whatever you want about the man's policies, but that was pretty funny. He's crazy. I've seen a meme. Andrew Jackson's bodyguards aren't there to protect him. They're here to protect you from him. Yeah, no, dude, look into Andrew Jackson. He has been in so many duels. He had this one guy that he beefed with all the time. Straight up got shot. This is like their last duel. He got shot by the guy and then proceeded, you know, he took the bullet and then he shot and killed the other guy. Wild. Wild, man.
From that day forward in her order. You could probably piece together what the Bloody Rose sisters prefer, and that's melee combat, and they're pretty damn good at it, actually. Instead of mindful meditation, they prefer good old cathartic rage and beating the living shit out of anybody who's pissed them off. They don't prefer turning the other cheek and hoping the sinner just dies at some point. They prefer good old retribution, because bastards need punishing, don't you know? Outside of all that, they just like killing chaos and are well known for messing up quite a few Slaaneshi cults from time to time.
I've seen a lot of Repentia outfits in my day. I've never seen one quite like this. Ma'am, that's just a parchment.
Which also probably does not help the Khorne accusations, but hey, let's, next. The Order of the Valorous Heart. On the relative opposite end of the spectrum, you have the Order of the Valorous Heart. Still maintaining a strong air of martial superiority, this order is founded upon the basic principles of stoicism and silence. Also, guilt and shame. They believe that life is pain and there is only different gradations of it, emotional, physical, and the severities therein. You gotta carry the weight, you know? So, how they tend to fight is once again based off of their Saint Lucius, who was the founding matriarch. How her story goes is she was allegedly an incredibly level-headed individual. This sort of anvil to St. Catherine's hammer. It's kind of this dichotomy that was summarized as being one needed the other to make sure that they had an even temperament. She was captured by a cult that wanted her to renounce the god emperor as actually being a god. They tortured her for months and told her that the pain would stop if she renounced it. Even so, she allegedly never did, though the cult itself came out and said that she died an ignoble death and actually did renounce her religion. But turns out, after years of prosecuting a holy war, the order that she left behind decided to find this entire cult and, kill them in as violent a way as humanly possible, and yeah, they did, and it turns out they were lying just to kind of destroy the morale of others. But the level-headed ideas of the Valorous Heart led to them realizing that it was complete and total falsehoods in order to break the backs of the Imperium. I think that's very interesting that their entire doctrine in combat is based around pain, suffering, and being able to weather the storm. It translates into the guilt and shame aspect that I mentioned earlier, where they feel guilt and they feel shame because of their participation in the Reign of Blood, which is Goje Vandire's reign over the Imperium. All of the Sisters of Battle feel this to some degree, though some are a little bit more resolute than others, but the Valorous Heart believes that they can never truly be wiped clean of this stain, and they need to work in order to be better as people. So they feel pain as sort of an act of self-flagellation. So they throw themselves into the most dangerous combats they possibly can in order to enact this sort of self-flagellation. This also leads to one of the weirder side effects of this group being that they have a lot of Sisters Repentia. Sisters Repentia are Sisters of Battle who believe that they have sinned too much and they need to be absolved of it in holy combat, removing their holy armor and being equipped with a holy weapon known as an eviscerator. The Sisters of the Repentia throw themselves just headlong into melee, and from there, if they survive, they're allowed to wear the armor once again, and if they don't, well, they died doing something that they loved, which is murder. This guilt is pretty pervasive. It's a very Catholic guilt-inspired faction, and I think that's a very interesting angle to go about them, with the deeply dark armor and the sort of funerary march aesthetic to them. On the instability scale, they're actually pretty high, which you wouldn't think, but it's because they're a bunch of self-flagellating stoics who don't believe in basically anything other than proving that vindication is the only thing that really matters in life. There isn't much else to say about them, and I think they're pretty average. They're not my favorite, they're not the one I like the least, but they can be a little boring at times. The Order of the Sacred Rose. These last three major orders are a bit weird, as they are some of the more significant ones, but they kind of have the least amount of lore, with an exception for the Ebon Chalice, of course. But before we talk about the Ebon Chalice, we do have to cover the Sacred Rose. Why? Because I just ordered them that way in my script, and it's my video, so I have to follow the set pattern set forth.
We have to listen to you.
Cry? I don't know. The Order of the Sacred Rose is kind of the sister order to the Order of the Bloody Rose, as they were two orders that sort of arose after the initial founding of the first four orders. They aren't too similar, though. They're actually quite opposed to each other. The Order of the Sacred Rose is an order propped up on the key theme of kindness, faith, and altruism, as well as communication, which for an army of the Imperium is not exactly normal. The Order of the Sacred Rose is a bunch of white armor-clad individuals who, of the entirety of the orders present, have the strongest faith and dedication to the Imperial cult. They are literally the most pious in the least weird way. There's no major amounts of self-flagellation. They just seek to preach the gospel to all who will listen above all other duties. Though don't think that means they are weak as a faction. Hell no. They actually are the most generally good of all the sisters. With no specialization, they just are good at everything to a nominal amount. There's not an emphasis on being elite or good at melee or good at range. They just can do it all with a specialization of obsessing over their own faith. The living saint and founding member of their order is Saint Arabella, and she was said to have been so faithful that she could make a heretic explode if she just looked at them and had the right state of religious fervor about her, which is, again, probably not true, but don't let the truth get in the way of a good yarn, right? The sisters of this order specialize in, weirdly enough, rallying the people to their cause. As they themselves are generalists, they have a special ability in terms of oratory skill, where they can convince people whom are not exactly the most pious of individuals to fight on their side as if they were the most obsessed zealots possible. So the thing that they tend to bring to different war zones is actually small bands of non-Sisters of Battle that fight alongside them. And these small bands, well, I use small as kind of a catch-all, but it's not really small. A lot of the times they're actually kind of massive groups of fanatical guardsmen and battle priests that follow them to most war zones. It's kind of cool to know that if you were to run these individuals on the tabletop and have them be lore accurate, you would actually run like Imperial cultists similar to that of like Chaos cultists on the board with them. And
yes,
it'd
that's
be
right. I remember seeing
horde
these
army
minis.
of
Yes.
sisters rather than just the kind of normal army that you have here. I like the stark white armor to indicate their level of purity, and as far as kindness goes, these individuals are pretty low on the instability scale. They are actually able to carry a conversation and be rather
Sweet.
reasonable, and they even will probably make your day better just by its inclusion. They are one of the most well-respected of the orders of the Sisters of Battle, for a reason. With the white rose being their symbol, it's nice that their stoic yet friendly temperament is indicated by their symbol, which is also in contrast to the Order of the Bloody Rose, who are especially violent to most people.
I do think they are my favorite amongst all the sisters.
The Order of the Ebon Chalice. This one is wild, because in theory, this should be the most well-known of all the orders of the sisters. Like, the Order of the Ebon Chalice should be the poster child for the sisters, not the Order of the Martyred Lady. For context, their founding saint is Alicia Dominica, who was the person who invented the Sisters of Battle orders as a whole. The Ebon Chalice was her specific order, and because of that, there is a long-lasting legacy of greatness that pervades their entire order. What do I mean? The Ebon Chalice has an odd specialization, and that is that they are the most elite of the Sisters of Battle. The level of training that you need to go through for them to take you in and accept you as a full-fledged Sister of Battle is actually a lot higher in terms of requirements than that of the other orders. It's why they also have the smallest number of sisters as compared to other orders, but they also have the smallest amount of losses due to the amount of highly skilled individuals they have, which is why they have the largest rank of Celestians, which are essentially the higher
Their shields look like coffins.
ranking version of your typical battle sister, that they attain this rank before they go into an actual like named position like a palatine or a dialogus or something like that. They just generally have access to better gear and shit. The best way to see the Order of the Ebon Chalice is they are on the opposite end of the spectrum as the Sacred Rose, where instead of having a bunch of lesser fellas in the midst, they only take the best of the best of the best. Having the best in almost every tactic, they are usually the ones who you want to see touch down with you as you get into some kind of fight of any kind.
Yeah, it would be like I would want to see Terminators get dropped down with me when I'm about to go have a fight. Yes, I would love to see Terminators.
Actually claim that the higher ranks of the Ebon Chalice are told some of the things that the Emperor said to Alicia before she cut the head off of Goje Vandire. And speaking of, one of the relics they actually field in the game as well as in lore is the sword that Alicia actually used in order to kill Vandire, which is pretty cool. Other than everything I've said, there isn't much else I can add. So yeah, they're just the elite Sisters of Battle. The Order of the Argent Shroud. Okay, last one, so let's wrap this shit up so I can go lie down in the woods for a little bit. The Order of the Argent Shroud is pretty interesting, as they are an incredibly religiously reckless faction of the Sisters of Battle. Basically, their whole gimmick is they believe in the sort of Deus Vult mentality where they throw themselves face first into the biggest ranks of enemies and just kind of assume it's going to work itself out at some point. It's actually not a joke. They legit don't listen to the idea of tactics because they think that shit's for atheists and dead men, which in their eyes are kind of the same thing. They are literally shock troops for the Sisters of Battle, with an interesting perspective on death and dying, where death is seen as kind of a good thing and greeted with silence. It is the end of a thankless burden that they see peace in. They love using jump packs and field a shitload of Seraphim and Zephyrim, and their
Very
name
cool.
actually comes from the fact that their living saint was actually killed relatively early into their life, with their body being on display for all to see, but one day the body ended up disappearing from the covering that it was hidden under. Underneath the veil that was covering the individual's skeletal face was the imprint of a skull on this shroud, and thus where the name, the Order of the Argent Shroud, came from. I don't remember who, but I heard a few people refer to these individuals as Raven Guard if they were Sisters of Battle, which is just incorrect. They just like jump packs, and that's literally the only similarity.
Yeah, jump packs
They
not
are
the same
also
thing.
one of the more unfortunate individuals that ended up having to deal with the Great Rift opening directly in their face. Yeah, most of the Sisters of the Order of the Argent Shroud are kind of stuck in permanent demon warfare, as they were relatively close to the openings where the Cicatrix Maledictum ended up opening. Now, you'd think that would mean that they suffer a prolonged and agonizing death, but you'd be surprised, because apparently that strong aura shit of them basically going fuck it, we ball all the time, it kind of is actually working out for their benefit, because I mean, they're kind of unpredictable at that point, right? Man, they're still in fact kicking around somehow, which we could only hope to attain that level of locking in at some point and getting your shit done, right? And that was everything.
Oh, I like this armor.
The 6 major orders of the Sisters of Battle, which is nice. There are a bunch of smaller orders, and if you want me to cover them, then let me know in the comments down below. I might do an even deeper dive into the Sisters of Battle at some point, but I think this will suffice for now. I got some big shit on the way, boys, and I hope you all can appreciate that. Let me know in the comments what you want to see next for one of these sub-faction breakdown videos, and I'll keep my ear to the ground for it because I do have a few that I want to cover. Also, remember to like and subscribe as it helps the channel immensely. Special thanks to my channel members for supporting me, and if you want to support me as well as gain access to additional and early content, then feel free to become a channel member today. Thank you all for watching, and once again, before I go, I got one piece of information in this entire video intentionally wrong, and if you figure it out, I'll pin the first person who finds its comment. Good.
Oh, it's a trick now. If he got anything wrong, he gets to say it was on purpose. Oh, smart, 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 smart.